I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. Welcome to the show this week. My guest today, Jay Edelson. He's a lawyer who is doing some really creative things in the marketing space, viral videos, big class action settlements. He's a man of the people. He's a rare lawyer that's coming at me. Look, just looking at you, right? You're looking casual. You're not dressed like a lawyer. You've got a cool mural in the background. So there's so much to talk about. Thanks so much for spending time with me today, Jay.
No, I appreciate it, Eric, but I got to push back already. So no, this is not how I dress normally. These are my school clothes, which I wore just for you. If you saw how we dress on a daily basis, you would not actually allow me on your show.
So this is you dressing up or dressing down?
Up. Oh no, this is like my nice shirt. The flip flops I have are like the good flip flops. It's the whole thing.
So one of the reasons why you were sent to me, one of my friends was like, you got to talk to Jay. He's just doing amazing stuff. And there's these videos that you're doing explaining how this works, like how, let's say, class action settlements work, or how some big cases work, or how lawyer payments work, or why certain decisions are made in the legal system. And it's done with this excitement. It's like, am I watching a music video? Is this MTV, right? There's a real edge to it. Is this you behind the scenes? Is this whose idea was this to be just so out of the box, right? Because we don't think of lawyers as doing these kind of ads. We think of them maybe as, okay, they have a billboard up or they've got the bus stop ad, but nothing really big on the internet.
Yeah, no, our firm has a whole department. It's called Edelson Creative, where we put out content. The way we came about it was pretty organically. It was, like most lawyers, we desperately want to be anything but lawyers. So one of my partners, Ari Sharg, wants to be a rap star. I've always fashioned myself as someone who could, write scripts and produce movies. And so we thought if we were really successful as lawyers, maybe then we would have some sort of avenue to, hit it really big on the entertainment stage. So that's the real goal. The videos aren't really actually explaining the process of class actions. That would be boring even to us. They're somewhat different than that. They tend to be rap lyrics. We have one which makes fun of how big law recruits people, and it's really speaking to law students, explaining why they've got other options, like they can go to firms which have volleyball courts at the firm, and weird murals like this. We have others where the message is pretty serious about how some plaintiffs' class action attorneys are taking advantage of the system, and they're making a lot of money and kind of screwing over their clients. And we do that because we believe in it, but also to put a lot of pressure on these bad firms to try to get better, because we think it's bad for the industry. So we're not trying to drum up more business. We're not really billboard type lawyers. It's more having fun and then trying to put a lot of pressure on people to do the right type of thing.
The priority, like you said, so you're not trying to bring in business. Are you doing this to just get attention, to get some buzz? Are you doing it because I assume no one's doing anything just for fun, right? Is it to recruit more talent? What's been the priority when you first did it? Was it literally this would be fun? But I assume lawyers are too smart for that, right? There's always a chess game. Like, I'm doing this for a specific reason or an outcome I'm trying to get to.
Oh, we're the least strategic firm out there. We were thinking about downstream effects. It really was about us having fun at the beginning. So we used to have a lot of videos done for our holiday party, where we'd bring in LA film crew, and we'd film like short SNL type sketches and then music videos, but it would just be for our firm, and it was a lot of fun. And we were putting just a ton of effort into it, and then realized that we had a bigger message, and wanted to kind of give some sense of our culture, and also try to influence things these ways. I just fundamentally believe that the way lawyers try to influence the law is we're all existing, 40 years in the past. I'll do things
Talk
like
about that. Talk about the 40 years in the past.
sure. So it's all the same thing. Like and I'll do. It's not that I'm above doing this. It's writing, it's writing opinion pieces in the National Law Journal, and it's doing these absurd conferences where there's 18 people there, and you're making whatever arguments you want, and nobody's paying that much attention. People are just trying to get continuing legal education credit, and it's all kind of speaking the same types of people in the same ways. And what we've realized, which in other industries they've realized that 10, 15 years before, is that what's great about being in 2022 is you've got unlimited platforms. So when we put out a music video, we got 100,000 views on that, which is a lot for kind of a niche subject, about how class action attorneys should be doing better. And it really, what we found in talking to our friends or colleagues on the plaintiff side, they really don't want to show up in our videos. That seems to be more important than anything else. So we have a lot of really frank discussions, when before it was, why don't you guys do the right thing so you're not screwing over your clients? The response was, well, we're making money. Who cares? And then when it shifted to, well, we're going to call you out in a music video, then they go, hold on, we don't want that. And so that's been fun for us. It hasn't made us the most popular plaintiffs attorneys, but we like it.
So how many people are at Edelson Creative versus the overall firm? What's the breakdown of, lawyers and digital marketers and staff? What's the size of your operation?
So, I mean, we really are Edelson Creative, and then we've got a small little law firm that is a piece of that is forced to do some legal work.
Because you really just want to be rappers and script writers, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, and volleyball. I mean, I don't want to brag, but I'm a very solid upper intermediate volleyball player. Right now, in our league, we play on the beach here in Chicago, and I think we're in 5th place. And I really think we've got a shot at winning the whole thing.
5th out of how many?
Out of like 14. Thank you for the question. Yeah, 5th out of 8 is nothing. 5th out of 14.
5th out of 5 is no good. Yeah.
No, that'd be bad.
Yeah.
But I feel good about our chances, and that's pretty important to me. I don't know if I can make a living being a recreational beach volleyball player, but I'm working on it.
But size-wise, like, are we talking on the order of like 10 employees, 100 employees? What's the size we're looking at for the overall firm?
We got about 80 employees.
Okay. So closer to that 100 round number. I was trying to get a sense for, it's a 10, 100, 1,000. Yeah. And you got into what I was going to ask, like not the feedback, right? The way people are taking the videos, right? I'm sure there's people that love it, and there's people in the industry that really hate it. They want to be as far away from you as possible, like as you just mentioned. So what has been the feedback? Has it just been some threats, or like keep me out of this? Like, what's been the communication back to you once they saw that, oh, they're really going to do this, and they're going to not just do one of these videos, but they're going to keep doing more of them?
No, we don't get threatened that often.
Maybe like subtle between lawyers, like, hey, you said not that often. That means it happens sometimes.
What
right?
would the threat be? The threat would be that they're gonna, take away my volleyball court.
I don't know.
Whatever threats there'd be, like, what, we're not going to invite you to some plaintiff's party. That doesn't push us much. So the reaction actually has been overwhelmingly positive. I can tell you, a lot of people, being more serious for a second, a lot of people at the firm were nervous when we started putting these out, because they weren't sure how it would be perceived. We're in front of judges on huge cases, $1 billion cases, hundreds of millions of dollars all the time, sophisticated cases that really matter to people, where they've suffered serious injuries, environmental cases. We're going to be dealing with some gun control cases. So the work really does matter significantly. And there was a concern that if we're kind of being cheeky out there, that could take away from the gravitas of our work. That really hasn't happened. What's been interesting is even in big law, the large defense firms, we've gotten really positive reaction from our opposing counsel saying things like they would love to do a rebuttal rap, but they're not allowed to because there's so much red tape over there. The biggest impact has actually been on the recruiting front, where law students seem to immediately get what we're doing. They like the reverent style. They like that we're speaking kind of truth. And it's been just a huge recruiting tool for us. And that's been really fun.
What is the public not understand about some of these, mass lawsuits, the class actions? Because you always see these big numbers, and then you always hear, oh, well, the individual gets $10 because the lawyers made 30% of a huge number, and then everyone else split a few bucks. Like, what is it that the normal person doesn't understand? Maybe they've been lucky enough to not have been a victim, not have been involved, right? Fortunate for them. But if it ever becomes something that they have to be involved with, what do they need to be wary of, or what do they need to know about?
Well, I think that they have to understand that high-level plaintiffs' attorneys don't all think the same about plaintiff's law. So some are really committed to justice and serving their clients, and some, frankly, aren't. Some are committed to making sure that they make a lot of money doing very little work, and that's unfortunate. One of the things that we're doing, we are spearheading the litigation and turning into criminal probe against Tom Girardi, who was the Aaron Brockovich lawyer, who we found out that he was running hundreds of millions of dollars in a Ponzi scheme for the past 10 plus years. He was considered one of the best plaintiffs attorneys on the planet, and he was stealing money from clients. The first thing the public has to understand is not every plaintiff's attorney is the same. And so when you look at these class action settlements and people are getting $10 back, a lot of times that's because it's manipulated by the class counsel to make sure that they get as much money as possible. And the deals that they're putting together tend to be really bad for class members. And they're doing that because they can get a bunch of money. They don't really believe in the case. I don't want to fight that hard. And they just don't care that much if someone gets, $10 or $800. Even though it's the client's case, the client's money.
You have done a lot of major cases. One of them related to the NCAA, and talk about that a little bit, because I'm a big sports guy. I was a sports reporter at CNBC. Like, I'm curious your perspective now that it's done. What you can say about that, and where you see college athletes now, right? Hey, now they can get paid for their name, image, and likeness. Like, things have come a long way over the last few years. But talk about your case.
Yeah, so we're lead counsel in the NCAA concussion cases, and so we are suing a bunch of schools and the NCAA and some of the conferences because we believe they were lying to these kids, 18-year-olds who are going to play football. They knew how dangerous it was. If you talk to the victims, it's horrible. The having repeated concussive hits can leave you it ruins your life. And, we believe that the NCAA and a lot of schools were covering that up. So it's significant litigation. It's been going on for a few years. We're about to start trying the cases, which we're very excited about. We think that the juries are going to be really receptive. But I do agree of this overall shift where before the NCAA, you couldn't even touch them, and the way they were exploiting student athletes was really abysmal. So I like the idea that college athletes can get paid some money. They're often bringing in tens of millions of dollars to their schools, and they ought to be able to share in that. The idea that they're kind of just purely amateur athletes, I think, is not really true, and not how the schools are treating them.
It's not the volleyball circuit in Chicago. It's a little bit more professionalized, right? Like you guys are true amateur athletes, compared to what the NCAA is.
Eric, I mean, I assume you're not trying to be offensive. I made it clear we are upper intermediate volleyball players here. That is almost as serious as you get. One more
That's
level.
almost like Division 1 right there.
It's not, but the next level is advanced, and then it's open level, and then pro. So we're essentially like the minor leagues for the professional volleyball league. That's how we see
There's
ourselves.
pro, then open, then advanced, and then upper intermediate.
Yes, which
And,
we
and
but
you're fifth in upper intermediate.
of like 14 teams, but
Yeah.
we've won upper intermediate, indoor and beach a number of times. I'm sure you saw it in my bio. So we feel pretty good about where we are in the upper intermediate ecosystem.
How much time do you even have? Because lawyers, it's all about those billable hours, and everyone's working 100 hours a week, and no one has time to do anything, let alone like see their family, forget about volleyball. Like, how much time are you really spending in all these different categories of your life?
Well, I think that lawyers that are so much in the weeds are bad lawyers. I've had that in my life where I've had cases and I was working, 16 hours a day just doing that. And you can't actually think about the bigger picture and make good strategic decisions. So I actually remember when I was just building the firm, some of my associates came to me and said, "You've got to stop. Like, what we need is for you to help out with big picture stuff. The more that you're just in the weeds, you can't do that." And so a lot of the firm, we try to pass that on. That doesn't just mean I'm the only one who's trying to have like a broader vision. We want our young attorneys and non-attorneys to also be thinking about the bigger picture, which means staying loose. So we play volleyball at the office virtually every day. I see my kids. I'd like to see them even more, but they're busier than I am. Part of getting to have your own firm is you get to do what you want, which means we want to have some fun over here.
I'm going to get back to that in a second, but I want to mention a couple of things. As your intro was humble. I left it humble, but like the New York Times has referenced you as, Tech's baby-faced boogeyman. Chicago Lawyer Magazine dubbed you public enemy #1 in Silicon Valley. You've reached some massive settlements awards for consumer privacy, and that's a big issue all the time, right? And it feels like typically these companies are getting away with a lot, right? Like we have no privacy anymore. There's nothing you can do. Everyone's name, address, and phone numbers on the internet for anyone to pull up. Everyone's data is being tracked, whether you want to opt out or not. What is your perspective on all that? Maybe talk about a case or two that you've been part of. Why does Silicon Valley hate you so much?
Well, that's a couple articles that people
don't believe the press. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have more complicated relationships with Silicon Valley than what can be expressed in an article. But yeah, I'm definitely, I don't think that they're my biggest fans. But that's fine. That's mutual. In terms of privacy, here's kind of how we see it. So the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, is a watershed moment with regard to privacy. The whole underpinnings of Roe v. Wade had to do with the constitutional right to privacy. And the Supreme Court is getting rid of that. And if you read Justice Thomas's concurrence, which is one of the scariest things ever, he suggests that a lot of other things that we thought were kind of pretty well established in constitutional law may be relics of the past, including gay marriage, including consensual sexual acts between adults in their own home, which decades ago there were state laws like about sodomy. You can't commit sodomy. And he's suggesting, no, the government can now go back in your homes and arrest you for that. Even he didn't mention this, perhaps for obvious reasons, or depending on how well you know his personal history, but he it even undercuts the protections against laws that prohibit interracial marriage. Like turns the country back 100 years. We actually think that there's going to be some interesting effects that help privacy law. where
Can I interrupt for a second? Just
yeah,
because I'm slow, right? I'm not a lawyer, so help connect me back to the idea of sort of the tech privacy. Or like, is the tech privacy that we talk about, is that literally like the same privacy that is being referred to at the Supreme Court, of this right to privacy? Is that all, you know what I mean? Is that the same use of the word privacy that applies similarly?
no. Here's the connection. The connection is that when things like this happen, and you have so judges and lawyers are people first, and the decision was shocking to most people in the legal community. Conservatives were cheering, but liberals and moderate people were pretty scared about the results. What happens is that creates a different receptivity to privacy cases. So, for example, we have all of these post Dobbs privacy cases where we're going to be suing companies who are doing things like tracking search histories. So, if you're searching for abortion clinics near you, and they're tracking you and then selling that, or geolocation is a big thing. So they're tracking to see where you're going, and they're selling that information. Those suits, which we've had some success with, we think courts are going to be increasingly receptive to that, because they're understanding that with the Supreme Court being as radicalized as it is, consumer privacy law really has to be strengthened. We're also seeing that, and this is going to be another rap video we put out, which is that this is really putting the Googles of the world in a major bind, because to cater to their employees, they're saying things like, "Oh no, we're still going to help with regard to women's health choices," but then they're doing all these evil things to track people and to monetize this information, and we think that these are the types of things that a lot of companies are going to have a hard time reconciling. It's not that dissimilar to when a lot of companies start distancing themselves from the sale of guns, or other issues which are kind of more moral. People didn't really consider privacy a moral issue, and I think now, after the Supreme Court, it's firmly in the moral camp.
When you saw the results, the recently we were just talking about from the Supreme Court, from your point of view, is there not so much your thoughts on that result, but like, okay, how is my work going to change? Is all of a sudden there going to be certain opportunities, like you said, like geolocation, search histories? Like, do you think of, I'm not saying like the business side of it, but like all of a sudden, are there some opportunities that open up of, okay, maybe this is an area that we need to explore as a future case that we need to go after?
Well, so I mean, our first cut of things isn't what's going to line our pockets. What we've done fine. We're kind of lucky enough not to have to be in a position where we have to worry about where the next dollar is coming in, and we're able to bring cases that we really care about. In terms of this, I mean, we understood where the Supreme Court was going for a long time, so we've been planning this for some time. We already have lawsuits in the works that we filed before, which now become more important post Dobbs, and then we're going to be doing a lot of work to really focus the public on what these companies are doing, how people are being tracked, and we're going to be doing some music videos too, calling out some of the big law firms, which we think are total hypocrites.
And what you don't have to name names because I'll wait for the law for the video, but like how are they hypocrites? What exactly are they doing?
Yeah, so I'll never name names. So there's a firm called Swilgen, who is all they do is defend privacy cases. Totally legitimate. They're allowed to do that. At the same time, they put out all the social media how they were joining this privacy coalition where they were going to try to help protect women in a post Dobbs world. And what we pointed out on social media was they are literally they're defending a client. We have a case where we're representing a class of people who used a Muslim prayer app, and their geolocation was tracked, and then it was sold to a data broker who their business is keeping track of where everyone is located, just geolocation tracking. And that is whose Wilgen is defending and saying they've got a right to do that and they can sell it to wherever they want. That's fine. They can take that legal position. But the idea at the same time, they're saying, and we're the good guys because we're going to try to help women's privacy after that Supreme Court decision. I mean, hypocrisy isn't even the word. It's just totally absurd. So that would be an example of one firm, which, you know, again, I won't publicly call out because that'd be rude.
Yeah, you don't want to name names.
I don't want to.
I'm a little speechless, actually, right? Like that seems kind of crazy, but we know in reality this is happening all the time, right? A lot of organizations have a certain point of view in terms of how they make their money, and then all of a sudden they're out there publicly saying something that's the opposite. Or we're part of this nonprofit, we're part of this board, we're part of this association, blah blah blah. But really, how we're getting paid is the exact opposite of what we're talking about. You must see it. You must see it a lot more than just this one example you mentioned.
We do, and what's really interesting in the legal world is that law firms specifically are getting pressure from new lawyers. So you have all of these really smart lawyers graduating from law schools who have kind of a deeper commitment to working for the public good, and they're using that to put pressure on law firms to do the right thing. So Yale, for example, has this environmental scorecard where they take all the big firms and they give them a rating from A to F based on, you know, if they're doing work that is, you know, neutral or anti-environment. There aren't really a lot of big firms that are pro-environment. So I think neutral gives you like an A. And what that does is it pressures the big firms to think about, well, do we want to keep getting these terrific applicants from the law schools of the world, or do we want to represent these anti-environmental interests? And it's a hard decision for them to make because they kind of need both to make money, which is their real goal. But we love that the law students are really pushing this debate in a way that's helpful, I think.
Are you seeing a difference in that new generation, the up and coming out of school lawyer, that all of a sudden you're hiring differently than a few years ago when you first started the firm, where it's like, oh, you know, this is a different generation. What they want is different.
It's totally different. You know, when I graduated law school in the mid 90s, there was really just one path. I went to Michigan law, and we were told you go to big law and you stay there, you know, until you jump out of a window. You know, that was the career path. And the really good law students were able to make it, you know, 25 years. I made it about a year and a half. And then I said, I can't do this. The law students now, though, they're just smarter than we were. And they realize that you actually don't have to sell your soul. You know, that's why, you know, one of our videos, it's called Big Law Refuted, which is a parody of Farmer Refuted from Hamilton, where, you know, you've got the big law person claiming all of these benefits, and then the Alexander Hamilton retort of, you're just totally full of shit. And that would not have resonated in the 90s. If I had seen that video, I would have just been confused, especially since there's a big polar bear in the middle, which is never explained. But here it's hitting people, look at it and go, yeah, no, I actually get that.
How did you get your first big case going out on your own? Like you said, you lasted a year and a half at big law, and you've got your own place, right? It's Edelson. It's your name on the door. How do you get the first case? So how do you get, like, okay, you've got some 9-figure settlements, 9-figure trial verdicts. It's got to start somewhere, and someone's got to, you know, take a chance on you. Hey, this guy has never done this before, but we're going to go ahead and let him try. What was that like, and how do you break through?
So, I mean, the first 7 years of my practice, it was mostly me learning how to be a lawyer. So,
So I thought you were supposed to learn that in law school, though.
they don't teach much in law school. I wish they did. I wish they taught basic skills, not just how to be a lawyer, but also how to be like part of a business, whether you're running a business or being an employee. They just don't teach like basic skills. But yeah, I view it as I was in the woods for 7 years where I was learning to be a lawyer. And at the time, if you had a case involving, $15,000 in damages, I was your guy. I was going to work my butt off and charge you almost no money. And I was happy to do it because I just wanted the court experience. And then, I built my reputation up and started getting some good wins. Our focus from the beginning was tech class actions, which what's great about the law is people aren't very forward thinking. So it's easy to have a competitive edge if you're just kind of in the current time. So when we started bringing suits against the tech industry, our friends in the plaintiffs bar kind of derided us and said, "Oh, you guys are the internet lawyers," as if we practiced on the internet, because they didn't understand the internet was a real thing. So that gave us a much easier path towards having kind of big successes. And it's established our credibility because, I was bringing privacy cases back in the year 2000 when everyone said privacy is totally irrelevant. And now I think, people more agree privacy is significant.
Yeah, what were the privacy cases back then? Because was it still the internet or was it something like non-internet based privacy?
No, it was internet.
Okay. Because back then it was totally the Wild West, right? I mean, at least now we have some measures in place or a community understanding of this, or even things like two-factor authentication and all the security. We have mobile phones, but back then it was like everything was being tracked and nothing was encrypted. It was just total open-ended over there.
Also, nobody knew who owned what. So like one of our cases at the beginning was against Amazon, where people downloaded, ironically, and this just made it bad for them in the press, George Orwell's book 1984, and then Amazon decided that they didn't have the rights to sell it, so they just virtually wiped it from everyone's Kindles. And so we were representing a high school student who had been working away and had all these notes and in the Kindle, because you can make comments and you can highlight. And and the question was, once the student paid for that, is it his, or can Amazon just come and do whatever it wants to this Kindle, and that they're allowed to monitor it and then make changes. We had a lot of kind of weird, fun cases. We had a case with Sears where they just you could go onto the website, and if you knew someone's address, you could see all the Sears appliances in their house.
Wait, say that again. Wait,
yeah.
What could you do?
You could see all of the Sears appliances that were in someone's house.
If you knew the address, if you just typed in an address on a web form.
Yes. Okay. So it was very hard time to explain to courts why that mattered, where we said, this is a real big risk, because it means that people can take advantage of, that elderly couple who they call up and say, "Oh, I'm calling from Sears. You've got this washing machine and it needs to be repaired, and we'd like to get into your house." These are things you're nodding, because it makes sense in 2022.
Right, it's giving away too much information that nobody needs to. Why on the internet? It's like, what's in my house, an inventory of things in my house. Yeah.
Right. But at the time, we had to really explain that to judges, who didn't get it.
It wasn't an obvious, oh, of course this is bad. It wasn't obvious. Wow.
It was not obvious at all. We've done, it's been quite a road to kind of, trying to educate everyone about why this stuff matters. But now that's in the rearview mirror. People understand it.
What about all this stuff that's just you can type in someone's address or like the real estate sites where all of a sudden it's like, who lives there, how much they pay in property taxes. You can pull up any town's property tax listing and see, who's paid what bill, and it's just open for everyone to see. Like that like before we had to go to City Hall to like pull some data out. Okay, if you're going to make the effort to go, they're fine. But now it's just on the internet for anyone to type in, or someone could type in your name and they see all the addresses that you've lived before and like all your relatives and their ages, and it's crazy. And to me, that feels like this is obviously a privacy problem here.
Yeah, and the going back to the kind of hypocrisy point, the companies that own these sites tend to have different views about privacy when it comes to them. So we had a case that went to the U.S. Supreme Court called Spokeo, where Spokeo has this, what they call people search engine. It's similar to what you're saying. I can type in your name and find out all this information about you. But the founders of Spokeo decided that they didn't want to be on Spokeo. And their reasoning was because of their own privacy. And, they're totally shameless. Like they have no issue at all taking hundreds of millions of people, putting all the information up on the internet. And a lot of the information was totally wrong too, which just complicates things. So someone would search for a person and would say they were married when they were single, which can be a problem if the person is dating. They might not want, their I don't know where people date on.
It's all a problem. It's a problem if it's accurate. It's a problem if it's inaccurate. The whole thing is a problem, right?
It's a problem. But the tech titans are happy to exclude themselves. And
right, if this is so good, why aren't you the first person out there? At least I appreciated the LifeLock guy that was like, "This is my social security number," and like, go ahead and try to steal it. Like I'm or the Hair Club for Men. I'm not just the president. I'm a member too. Sure. Whereas it's like, if you're going to take your thing off of this, then what are we doing here?
I 100% agree.
Yeah. But those things all still exist, right? There was a story in the Wall Street Journal today. Here's how you get yourself off of whitepages.com and all of these places. How can you delete your stuff? Like, this is still happening today. So these problems are still everywhere.
Well, we're suing those companies. We're suing White Pages.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. These are big fights, and sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. But we definitely think a lot of these companies are acting illegally. And, part of what happens is if we're successful, we get the conduct changed too. So like Facebook, our big Facebook settlement, we got $650 million for the class, which was a terrific result. But we also got
nothing for them though, right? That's like a minute's worth of revenue for them.
So they had never settled a class action for more than $20 million before. So it's true that $650 million didn't matter to them taken alone. The reason it was so hard to get that settlement was because it changed the whole landscape when it came to privacy settlements, and it meant that they were now going to pay billions in the future.
Right.
But part of the settlement, we were alleging that they were collecting people's biometric information, their facial prints, and amassing a large database, and they abandoned that program after we settled, and so that was a pretty good win for us.
How do you rank big tech in terms of most to least worrisome? Right, Google knows everything you're doing. Facebook, Google, it feels like you can avoid Google. It's harder to avoid Google. Facebook, you can just simply not use it. But then they own WhatsApp, they own Instagram, Amazon. It's pretty convenient, so it's easy to want to use them. But then they know everything that you bought. Then they bought Whole Foods. Then they're buying the medical company, right? Twitter, all of these. Like, how do you rank them in terms of kind of most evil to least evil, and what's your own personal, like, how do you personally handle your own privacy?
Yeah, so it's actually, here's a rule of thumb in figuring out whether a company, how far they are on the evil spectrum. You look at whether the company is basically just trading in data or whether they've got real products too. So for example, Apple is a real company. I don't think they're great on privacy, but they, on the evil scale, they're on the opposite side. Kind of, they're not neutral. They're still not great on privacy. They're certainly not good, but they're not awful. And the reason is because they're selling things.
But they sell actual stuff like phones and earphones, like hardware, computers. They sell real things. Yeah.
Right. And so because of that, the relationship with the customer matters more to them. Facebook, which really only deals with your data, you don't exist to them. You only exist as a product.
Right, because we don't buy anything from them. They don't sell stuff. They just exist as a data collector, basically.
Yeah, I mean, virtually all of what they do is just collecting data. So Facebook is awful. Google's awful. Amazon is, isn't quite as bad. It's pretty bad too, because just because of their own kind of ethos there. Most of the companies really are.
So what's a normal person to do? And what do you do? Do you buy on Amazon? Do you use Google to search? Do you have an iPhone? Like, Microsoft, all this big tech is so ingrained into our life. It's hard to not use, right? I'll have these companies are using Google Docs, right? Or they're putting their things on AWS, for example, in the cloud, and then you don't know what's happening there. So how do you personally handle it?
Well, and we handle it by, when we see an issue, trying to change it through getting new laws passed or bringing litigation. So yes, there's definitely a lot of products that I wouldn't use because of the privacy ramifications, which is really scary. But I don't think the solution is that everyone in America has to make an individual choice every time and try to figure out, is this new company I'm dealing with, are they going to treat my private information well or not? An example is, I don't know if you have a dog. There's a dog walking app called Wag. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah, I know Wag. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just learned this in the last week, and we're investigating now. They're awful when it comes to privacy, and that's not anything that would have occurred to me. I thought that they were just like Uber, but for dog walkers, and they're a really, really scary company out there. So I don't think that
Uber's another one. Like that's another one that certainly they know everywhere you're going, coming and go. But Wag, is it just simply the location? Is it just the geolocation part of it, or are they selling it? Or what makes Wag difficult?
they're doing things like I'm for the first time I'm going to be a little tight-lipped because we're going to bring a suit fairly soon, but they're doing a lot of things that are very, very scary. We'll detail that one.
That's certainly one to watch because it reflects an example of maybe what a lot of other companies are doing, right? If it's not Wag, it's a company that operates similar to Wag, right? All of a sudden it opens the door to all those other apps on your phone. And what are they tracking and how are they doing it?
Yeah. What makes me mad about Wag is that I thought it was about helping pet owners. Like we're going to walk your dog and take cute pictures of it and send it to you. And, when you start understanding their practice, you just get a much different sense of who's running it. And that was pretty upsetting to me.
Is there, for some companies we've seen okay, TikTok, right? Based out of China. What's your view on that? Do the Chinese companies have, are you more wary of them than even a quote bad American company?
Companies in China, I think, are problematic because the government puts a lot of pressure on them and we think often takes information. And so when you've got a government that is committed to spying on people in our country, and then there's a company like TikTok, which knows so much about us, that's a bad combination.
So then I want to know, what phone do you use? Do you use an iPhone or an Android?
I use an Apple.
Okay. Do you search on Google or will you use something like a DuckDuckGo or something else?
I mean, I don't talk about all that publicly.
I'm just curious, what should a normal person do? Are there just basic habits that okay, I use this product instead of that product, just little tweaks that someone can do?
One thing is you can look at what the Zuckerbergs of the world do, and there's been a movement for the past 20 or 15 years in Silicon Valley, where especially with kids, of not actually having them use iPads and iPhones and all of that, keep them away from electronics because of, how dangerous it is in so many different ways. So, I think one thing is deplugging a little bit is pretty helpful.
Yeah, no, this has been eye-opening. Jay, I appreciate the time. It's amazing everything that you've done. Thanks for spending the time sort of walking me through some of these examples. It certainly gives me an eye. And yeah, I'll just end with why do people just have such this love-hate relationship with lawyers, right? Because on one end, you can say, hey, you're doing something good because you're helping force companies to change, right? Because sometimes the government can't get around to it. An individual person like just me by myself, there's nothing I can do. So like on the power of many people behind you, you can get companies to adjust their behavior. But then yet a lot of people think, oh, these class action guys, they're just out there for the money. Like you said, they're not all created equal, but the reputation certainly is there. So like, what should people try to take away from this?
I think that, the reputation of class action attorneys is well earned. I think that when you have a good percentage of plaintiffs' attorneys that are manipulating the system and doing wrong by their clients, it tars all of us. And so that's why we're so outspoken about it. And lawyers do that, not just class action lawyers, but all lawyers do that, where it is you're in a position of power often, and you're dealing with clients who aren't as sophisticated as you when it comes to legal matters, and you can take advantage of them. And there are a lot of lawyers on the defense side doing real estate closings, personal injury accidents, who are happy to take advantage of people, and it's awful. It's that's why there needs to be a huge reform. Where we're really pushing for that, and we've kind of been the leading voice of reform on the plaintiff's side, and that really has to happen. Otherwise, we deserve the reputation that we have.
Well, Jay, you're one of the good guys. I appreciate the time today. Good luck with volleyball. Maybe you can get to the top 4. Maybe if you're really good, you guys can bump up a division, but that might be a couple of years out still.
We're not going up to the next level. It's all like 6'4" D1 volleyball players. There's a big gap. I do think we'll get to the finals and maybe win this division. I feel good about us.
Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to seeing what the results are on that. We'll see what's going on. Maybe with WAG, we'll see something in the news on that. And if we want to talk about lawyer reform, that's going to be a whole other podcast. So we gotta leave it there. Jay, thanks for the time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.